Hey, it's Thomas Cox here with Jim Prinzing, and this is our very first episode of M2 Managing Managers. This is the podcast that shows you how to do the exponentially more difficult work of managing managers rather than just managing people in a single team. Why is it exponentially harder, you may ask? Well, my claim, and Jim can correct me, is when you manage just one team, you can get to know them all as individuals, and you can kind of use the seat of your pants and figure it out. And you may not have any, theory or formal education, but as long as you are focused on outcomes and you make sure the relationships are good in your team, you can. A lot of people, fake their way through it. In fact, I would say most people do because there's so little good leadership training out there. But so managing a team could be done sort of intuitively, seat of the pants, whatever. But when you start managing managers, your job is to make them effective as managers, not as workers. And they're each different people, and they've each got a different team with different individuals and different missions, and they might have totally different mental spaces. And you are responsible for helping them be good leaders in each of their unique contexts as unique individuals with unique subordinates. And so your seat of the pants is not going to work. You either will develop a theory of leadership just because you have to, or you'll just try to apply your own, this is the way I've always done it, you should try it my way, which will fail at least 75% of the time. Or you'll just say, well, we'll figure it out, and you'll just abdicate the problem to them. And we say that there's a better way, that when you understand the foundations that make what leadership really means, how it works, what followers need from their leader in order to follow correctly the way they want to get the best out of them. There's actually, there's science behind this. There's patterns you can spot. And when you start to see them, then when you, as the manager of managers, can start to give very useful contextually specific guidance to your unique team. You have each manager reporting to you do different things. Tactically, they're part of the same philosophy, the same worldview. I'm talking around this a little bit. Maybe we should get Jim. How would you elaborate or correct what I've said so far?
I think it's absolutely accurate, and I fell into the first box that you talked about. When I started managing managers, and became a regional manager, elevated to an area director where I was managing a group of regional managers. My first try was that seat of the pants, what worked for me, and try to work with them and use the tools that I had built. And, I quickly realized that those managers that I was managing, those regional managers, were not me. They all had individual styles. They all had individual challenges.
Yeah.
And so I started to have to formulate my own sort of, leadership theories around how to help them be more successful as managers of other people. And luckily, I found my way to some pretty great tools along the way, and really got to deploy those as a CEO. Then later in my career, especially joining the ever great Vistage.
Yes.
Getting lots and lots of tools and frameworks and models to help me teach others to lead using their styles and their strengths. But then really formulating that as, we started to work together.
Right.
And, taking all of those tools and rubrics and mental models and, thinking about what does it really take to lead others? And, we've started to really hone in on what that is.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. This was the breakthrough question for me. And that is to figure out what do all followers crave in their leader? What's the one thing that's constant? Now, we've already said that while each manager is going to manage a little differently, they'll have a little bit different team, so you'd think that there is no commonality, and that's not true. Thank goodness that there is a commonality here, and that when you ask followers, not what they would like in a leader, which is hypothetical, and you get blue sky thinking, you ask them instead, who was the best manager you ever had, who got the most out of you, who helped you achieve your goals, who helped you grow, that made work fun and delightful and challenging and a joy. And it turns out everyone says the same thing. They loved the boss who was calm, self-aware, steady under pressure. that they would, if something happened and it's like, oh, boss, what do we do? They would, in a calm voice, said, we will figure this out. And they wouldn't underplay the problem. They wouldn't put, oh, it'll be fine. It might not be fine, but we're gonna face it together. Calm, steady, self-aware. Number 2, they always describe a leader who built trust with them. They felt seen, they felt heard, they felt supported, they were treated as a unique human being. They may or may not have been best buddies, but they knew that this was a boss who cared about them as a human being. They weren't just some replaceable cog. And then the third thing that everyone always describes when we ask them about their best boss, all 3 of these are true. Clear expectations, a high bar for growth-focused feedback. And what we're really describing here is balancing care and challenge. Balancing care and challenge, so that there's this, I care about you and I'm going to challenge you. It's not one or the other, it's both. And what this combination of things does is it unlocks their potential. And people are so happy when they can talk about the boss who helped them grow in this way. And so what this all adds up to is, basically 3 buckets of behaviors that when you as a boss engage in it, you will have that same positive impact on your people. And we call that the sage mind, right? Steady, calm, curious, empathic, creating psychological safety. And building great relationships, building trust and engagement, getting to know people as unique human beings, taking the time to get to know them and how they each work. You'll hear Gary Vaynerchuk will say loudly and repeatedly when he asks this topic, get to know your people. You've got to know how they tick, which is a precursor to getting the best out of them. And then when you know how they tick, it's much easier to set clear expectations, drive accountability, push people into growth. When you try to require without a basis of relating and knowing them as unique individuals, it fails. If you try to do either one of these when you're not a steady, calm, curious, empathic human who can be, steady, calm in a crisis and create psychological safety, you're not really going to be very effective at either of these. And it is no surprise that every single time I've asked this of thousands of people over the last now over 10, 15 years, tell me about the best boss you ever had. These are the 3 things that are always brought up. They don't recognize the pattern until I say, it sounds like there's 3 buckets of behaviors here. And they all go, oh my God, you're right. Jim, is that fair for you as well?
Yeah, I only started asking the question after I met you a few years ago. And it's really the most magical question to ask anyone who is interested in developing their own leadership because, under that, if you can see it, you can be it. Guys, it really helps them visualize the kind of leader that they want to be for their own team. Yeah. And, sets that, vision for what they want to achieve. So, right. And it's true. Everyone describes exactly the same archetype. How they did those individual things was individualized to their own work styles. So, this is not to say that, therefore you need to lead all people the same way.
Nope.
That's actually the magic of this model is because of the relating part of the model, you get to know each individual person's strengths and opportunities and, how they need to be led. And that really enables you to unlock the performance potential in them. I can't not think about the great coaches.
Yes.
I can't not think about the John Woodens, or the Phil Jackson, Michael Jordan relationship. Those things where you even had top performers whose potential was transformative because of the leader who, helped them, pushed them, but also built trust with them and, knew what they were capable of and pushed them beyond where they even thought that they could go. It's really, I get chills thinking about it.
So let's talk about some examples of this, what this looks like in practice. Get to know your people as unique individuals, like what? Well, let's say you have Sally working for you and you know that Sally has very tight childcare needs and really needs to leave the office at 4:30 every single day. If she's even a little bit late, her whole afternoon, evening falls into disarray. Like, you would want to know that. so that if there's some need to work late, she'd be the last person you would ask because the burden on her would be disproportionately high. In fact, you might share that with the rest of the team. Hey, we all need to get Sally out of here by 4:30 so she can get her kids out of childcare. All right, are we all cool with that? Now, she in turn, feeling supported by the boss and the team, are going to go like, okay, great. How do I pay that forward and do what I can do? Well, I can come in early, or I can, do an hour on a weekend, or I can cover your shift, here or there. And so now that you know what someone values, you know what to watch out for, what to protect for them, and what to offer them. Take the opposite case. Let's say you didn't know that about her. Well, we all have to take our turn staying late. That's fair, you might say. And great. So every time, let's say once a week somebody has to stay late. Then every couple of weeks when it's Sally's turn, she's got to make extra arrangements, and nobody cares about her, and no one's compensating her for this extra pain. Blah blah blah. And you don't even know what you're doing to people when you don't take the time to find out what's happening in their lives. I take it one step further. I'm going to quote Mark Horstman here, the author of The Effective Manager, which is probably the greatest book on management ever written. And he says, when you don't know the names of your people's kids and spouse, and you don't know anything about their home life, you don't know about the most important thing in their life, because the work is not the most important thing in their life. That would be weird and unhealthy. You want people to care a lot more about their family than they care about the work. But when you don't know about that, you don't know them. You don't know what trade-offs are important to them. You don't know what motivates them. You've lost all of the keys to the deep understanding that helps you maximize them. And Jim, you probably got some examples of where knowledge of particular aspects of the people you work with help them do better.
Well, it's absolutely true. I mean, it's not like the show Severance. We don't have severed employees where they have an.
If anybody hasn't seen Severance, it's a sort of a sci-fi premise where when you walk into work, they activate a part of your brain that's not available to you when you're outside the building, and you have no memory of your outside life. You're just this person at work. And then when you leave the building, everything that happened at work is not available to you anymore. Your brain has been severed. Hence the name
so it's
Severance.
like a work you, that's your innie, and then your outie is your home you. It doesn't work that way. People bring their whole selves to work. And I think people who are averse to this, they think that, I've got to be responsible for all this, and I can't take on all of these, and I don't need to know all these personal things about them. That's not what we're talking about.
Right. We're not making you responsible for Sally's childcare. That's
no,
Sally's.
And we're also not talking about, getting to know intimate details about people.
Right.
But
you're not the therapist. We're not trying to turn you into a therapist.
To be an effective leader, you need to know enough about your team so that you understand the whole person, not just the person who comes to work. Because when that happens, that's when trust is built, and that's when people feel cared for. And when people feel that at work, they are more likely to go above and beyond. You'll get compliance without building that. The best you can hope to get is 100%, but that's super rare to even get that 100%.
Right.
Most of the time you're getting 80 or 90%. You're getting just enough for them to keep their head down and make the cut, so to speak.
They do enough to not get fired.
Right. But when people feel that you truly have their best interest in mind, that you care about their growth, and that you do the things that are reasonable to accommodate their life, conditions, that's when, as Thomas said, people will reciprocate, and they'll go above and beyond. That's how you get 120%, 130%. That's how you drive engagement, and that's how you drive loyalty, ultimately. One of my mentors used to tell me loyalty only goes up one level. And it's true. People are not loyal to their...
Yeah, well, ask yourself. Company, right? You ever had a boss you... Think about your own case. Have you ever had a boss you were loyal to? Yes, hopefully. Okay. Did that then transfer to you being loyal to the person above them? My God, no. That person was a veritable stranger. I might like them, sort of. I might respect them, sort of. I might hear from my boss that my boss was loyal to them. But it's just not, it's not transitive.
Or vice versa. Have you worked for a company that you really like, but had a really lousy boss and left because you just couldn't take it anymore?
Yeah, it's rough.
Been there, done that.
So this touches on like the reason people leave or the reason people stay and how they get joy at work. So our Jim and my organization our purpose is to help other people manage their managers better so that the managers can manage teams better so that people, workers, can have a really good experience at work and not suffer through bad boss syndrome. And what that looks like is the boss who wants you to do stuff, but either they aren't steady in a crisis, they're kind of like Chicken Little going, blah, blah, in manufacturing additional levels of chaos beyond what the environment's bringing you, or they don't get to know you as a person, so you don't feel cared about. And it's very hard to open up and be honest and candid and say all the things that really should be said. Like, hey, we got a problem coming. Yeah, the boss doesn't want to hear that from me. Okay, I'll keep it to myself. Oh, look, the problem came anyway. Oh, but we weren't prepared for it. Why? Because I didn't say anything. Why didn't I say anything? Because I didn't feel safe to talk. Why did it not feel safe to talk? No relationship. And therefore no sex safety, and therefore no opening up. And the organizations that do well over time are the ones that anticipate problems and they capture problems as they happen and learn from them and get better. And that is very hard to do, actually. And it requires an investment in what we could become known as psychological safety, which is not that no one's ever uncomfortable. Please. Psychological safety is not the state where no one's ever uncomfortable. Psychological safety is the state where it's actually safe to be uncomfortable. In other words, I can say something. This happened between Jim and me. I was doing indulging in some of my bad habits as a coworker, and it was annoying Jim to the point where he had to confront me about it. And I was like, "Thank you so much for confronting me. I need to know this. I don't want to drive you away. I want to work well with you." I was sort of like allowing myself to go worse and worse and worse, and it's like, that's too far. Okay, and I came back again. If he hadn't told me, we just would have entered the relationship. Because he obviously couldn't take that from me. The details are not important, people.
We had pre-created the conditions where I felt safe enough.
Yeah, you were willing to. It's like, I think you'll take it well, and it's. I have to do something. Okay.
And right, so but I wasn't afraid that you were going to.
Wig out or.
Right.
I won't be spoken to this way.
Right. Terminate our relationship.
Yeah. Which meant I was showing up on Jim's radar as someone who was calm, steady, willing to hear bad news, willing to be confronted, willing to be challenged. And when you do more of that, you get more challenges and you get more learning. I'll give you another example of what I think we don't get enough of at work and how the kind of leadership we're talking about really pays off. This is something I was just sharing with a team yesterday. It's my claim is that as a boss, you need to know what excellence is in order to set workers up for success. And you know what's the target condition for excellent work? Like, what does it mean to, greet a customer perfectly at the restaurant door as the greeter? What does it mean to take their order with excellence or prepare the food or any of the things that happen in a restaurant? And there's a noble purpose to everything that happens. If there's not a noble purpose, you shouldn't be doing it. But here's the fun part is, as the manager, you can get to know the workers' own goals and values and help them connect the dots. That, hey, when you do these things here at work, the noble purpose of the work connects to your values. And so you're actually expressing your own values when you come to work. And that makes the work more fulfilling. It's the same work, but now that they're thinking about it differently, it feels different and they perform different. And you can't do that, which is one of the very first things you want to do, if you don't know them. And if you don't have enough relationship to ask about their goals and their values, or notice them as they work and pay attention to those details. So my claim is that if you manage people, I'm going to go meta in a minute, but let's just start with the frontline manager. Okay, what's the definition of excellence for each person reporting to you, right? You're the frontline manager. You got some workers. You've got to make sure that you help them have access to some definition of excellence. First step on this little stairway to excellence here. All right, then you got to make sure there's some kind of standard work. Here are the steps to follow to wash dishes. Here's the steps to follow to bus a table. And, wrong direction, sorry. Training and feedback, right? There's got to be training and simulation so that they know how to follow the steps and what it looks like when it's done right, and then feedback on, yeah, that was great. Ooh, a little more to the left. Wow, that was a good effort, but you missed something. Like, help them get better, just like a coach would. And then job aids. That's anything that makes it easier to do good work and harder to do bad work. Cheat sheets, checklists. Like in a bar guide, if you're making a drink, it would have a list of the ingredients in the order you would put them in the drink, and then a photo of what the final drink looks like. It's going to help you make the drink look right because it's got the photo. You know? And okay, so you can imagine yourself being a frontline manager and doing the work, or having the company do the work, hopefully, of providing a lot of this, and you make sure that it's available to them and they understand it. Okay, now let's pop up a level. Now it's no longer ensure each worker has. Now you're a director. You have to ensure each manager has a definition of excellence for management.
Yeah, I think this is where this model, like I'd say most successful companies that are successful to some degree do a relatively good version of at least the bottom half of those steps, right?
Yep.
They may not be connecting to the noble purpose, and the goals and values. Like that, I think, is missing from a lot of organizations. But the standardized work and defining excellence at the line level, the frontline employee level, is done pretty well. Where I think most companies completely fail is defining this for their managers.
Yeah.
It's hey Joe, you're a manager now. Now you got this team of people. You were a really great, whatever. You were a really great welder. Now you're managing this team of 10 welders.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. And
so what we're really talking about is how do you define excellence for leadership, right? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think everyone deserves to know what excellence is for their job. I think that is absolutely reasonable thing to ask, is that, if I'm going to give you a job, that I should make clear to you what you should be doing. And I actually wrote this out. I'll put this on screen. So I was asking the question, this was a question I asked myself actually, what expectations should HR or the firm or a director, what expectations should we place on managers? And it's very common for there to be little to no expectation of actual people management in the job description. I went out and looked on several job boards at job descriptions for managers. And I looked at the list of responsibilities and tasks, how all those job postings will have that. And the majority of job descriptions for managers had nothing in there about managing people. It was like, approves time cards, or schedules shifts, or report, is responsible for, stuff that the front line's doing in terms of work product. But things like take 100% responsibility for everything that is done in and by their unit and that fails to be done whether they know about it or not. I love that line because some of us look at it and go, just a little bit.
It sounds scary, but it's true, right? I mean,
yeah.
If you've been in a manager,
and it goes upward because the director has to be 100% responsible for everything that's done by all their managers, whether they know about it or not.
And that is what you're held accountable to, but
or should be.
But nobody tells you that, right?
If it's said, it's often not said clearly, and it's usually implied. They wait for something to happen and then they yell at you.
Right.
It's like, well, I didn't know. Well, you should have known.
Right.
What?
Magically.
Yeah. And by the way, the fun part about whether you know about it or not, as soon as you embrace this and go, okay, I'm going to try that on, just try it on like a coat, people. And as soon as you embrace that, you go like, oh, wait, if I'm really responsible for everything that happens in my organization, I have to know what's going on. And any reluctance you formerly felt about asking for status reports vanishes. It's like, no, I'm entitled to have status. I'm entitled to know where you are. I'm entitled to know if you leave your post. I'm entitled to know if you're going to be out, for, hey, I need to be away from my, I'm the dishwasher. I'm going to take a 20-minute break. 20 minutes, really? Are you caught up enough to justify that? Are you got someone covering you? Ensure the unit delivers excellent results to the customers. That's less controversial. Provide management and leadership for the unit and its staff. Assure morale and culture are excellent. What? I have to be good at morale and culture? Yes, you do. But how do I do that? Well, someone better give you a process, huh? We do that. All staff master the duties of their roles and are growing their skills over time. What, am I a trainer now? Yeah, you kind of are, actually. Or you're responsible for ensuring that training happens. That staff are able to manage their conflicts constructively and professionally. What, am I a therapist? No. But if you have a process that staff can follow to manage their normal conflicts constructively and professionally, then this won't be hard. And if you lack that, shouldn't you go get one? Oh yeah, we provide that. Build highly trusting relationships with each direct report. I'm literally telling people that they need, when I put that in the job description as a suggestion or as a proposal, what I'm really saying is, here we go. I'm saying you need to do these 3 things. I need you to build highly trusting relationships, and I need you to take full responsibility for everything that happens, whether you know about it or not, which means you got to get good at doing that cascade of requiring that goes down the line. And so there's nothing in that job description that can't be done by a manager with proper training. It's just that 80% of people who go into management to get no meaningful training for at least 5 years.
Right.
Which is horrible. And
what I really like about, can you put the model, the transformative leadership
absolutely
back on?
I will pull it up.
What I love about that model is that, in that, if you can see it, you can be it modality, seeing their leader, their most inspiring leader or their best coach, teacher, leader fit into these buckets really helps them start to unlock their own capabilities as a leader, because it gives them a path to, find ways, I call them hacks, for me, because I'm a natural relator, right? People tend to kind of skew more toward relator or requirer naturally.
Yeah. One's more comfortable.
Right. One's more comfortable. And I was, very comfortable at relating, very uncomfortable at requiring. The upside to the way that I approached it was I had to create hacks for myself in order to require, because I realized that in order to be an effective leader, especially an effective CEO, I had to require, I had to demand excellence. But my road to that was I needed to build the relationship to the purpose of, I've built this relationship and the trust with this person so that I can require.
Yes.
And that turns out, I accidentally got there, but it turns out to be, really the most effective way to require.
Yeah.
Because if you require without that built-in trust, now it feels like, you're
a stranger is demanding compliance.
Right. And you're
a person who doesn't know me well and doesn't know my circumstance and doesn't understand the ins and outs of my job.
And you're just cracking the whip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But because I accidentally found my way to that, I was a highly effective CEO, and I had an incredibly loyal team as a result of it. So the magic is when you have this model, we can help people move the bar in whichever area that they're lacking. We've found people who are actually great at relating and requiring, but they are not super sagey. Like they're a little erratic and they're a little panicky, and we've got
undercuts their effectiveness.
Yeah, it completely undermines. I mean, because you can't create psychological safety, which really hampers trust and connection. And on the requiring side, not having that psych safety means that people aren't raising their hand and telling you, the issues with the things that you're requiring them to do. They're
afraid to say,
They're afraid.
He does realize that violates statute, right? Oh,
Right.
he must know what he's doing. I'm not going to say anything.
Right. Right.
Oops.
Yep. And then they don't, or they might be failing all quarter long because they don't want to say anything about their numbers being off of goal, and then you don't find out until the very last day before the quarter's due that you're way off of your goals.
Yeah, and you look back over the dashboard and it's like, oh, they reported green week by week, and then suddenly it's red, and it's actually been red the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's like, but they didn't tell you early, and to them it's rational. Like if I work for a boss who's just a requirer, then if I report red, I'm going to be beaten. I'm going to be criticized. I'm going to be tongue lashed. I'm going to be shamed, blamed, whatever.
I'd rather have that one time, not week after week after week.
Why would I sign up for 13 weeks of that when I could just do it once? Right? 12 weeks I'll fly under the radar. The 13th week I'll get, beat up.
Yep.
And then, hey, it's a new quarter. We'll start over.
Yep. Rinse and repeat.
And that's like, yeah, you can't really run their business effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's great is by seeing this model, imagine, visualizing that great, coach or leader that they had.
Yeah, their own history. They're drawn on their own memories.
Yeah, and it helps them
They can't deny that this works because they lived through it.
Right. I mean, not naming names, but one organization that we worked with early on with this model, the director, said flat out, "I don't do emotions. I don't like that touchy-feely stuff.
Yep.
It creeps me out." And that person didn't actually participate in the cohort, but we shared the information with them weekly.
Yeah,
and we gave them
because the subordinates were taking it, and so we kept that person informed, and they got exposed to all the material.
Yep. And by the end of it, and they didn't even realize the transformation that occurred in themselves. But by the end of it, they became really good relators, and almost stealth-wise, they didn't even know that it had happened to them. And then talking to them later, it was like they were the biggest fans of this model.
Yep.
And didn't even remember
the early resistance, right?
It was so much fun, yeah.
Yeah. And just one more thing about this conceptual model is when you think about the best boss you ever had, you think very specifically about Fred or Janet or whoever it was and the very specific things that they did. And there is no easy way to generalize what they did in maybe some other industry, or they just have a different personality. It's like, well, I can't be them. No, you can't. You shouldn't try. So what were they doing right? Gosh, I don't know. They did these very specific things that I specifically remember. But what they did delivered this result. Oh, right. And the way they chose to build a relationship created trust and engagement. Oh. And then there's the ways of requiring. And then we teach specific practices in each of these areas, and then you pull out the specific way to do it that works for you. But by filling all three buckets well enough, you create this space for transformation.
Let's talk about what that transformation looks like for a minute. Like, what is that really? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love that quote. Leaders who create that experience don't just manage teams; they transform them. To me, that means, a team that is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's what I think great leaders do. Is they take a team. There's the old saying of great leaders take C players and make A players out of them, and terrible leaders take A players and make C players. I mean, it's
sad and sort of.
It's sad and true, right?
Very true.
Yeah. Sports movies are full of.
Oh yeah, it's the same player. Yeah, same players, but a different experience.
From the Bad News Bears to Remember the Titans, right? It's the same story repeated.
Same team, new coach, new leadership, new outcomes.
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso. Right. Yeah. Although that was fiction, I'll give you a real world example that's fairly well known. Is the Numi plant? Toyota came.
Yes.
To the United States, they wanted to see if they could build Toyota-style cars in North America with American workers. And so in typical Toyota fashion, they wanted to partner with somebody. And so they went to General Motors and said, hey, can we work together and open a plant together because we want to learn these things and you can learn from us. We're fine with that. And General Motors said, sure. And the plant they picked to reopen was a recently closed General Motors plant. I think it was in Fremont or Oakland.
California. Yep.
Fremont. And it was closed because it was the worst plant in North America owned by any manufacturer.
Yeah, like people
cars.
brought weapons to work. Like,
people were drunk at work.
Oh yeah, drunkenness, drugs. Like, there were drug deals being made in the break rooms.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
On and on and on. Yeah, absenteeism was high. Defects were through the roof. People took no pride. And one of the workers there was interviewed, said he tried to come up with suggestions for how to make the work better, and he was always rebuffed. He was always like, well, we don't want to listen to you. And they would just ignore his input. It's like, okay, so he stopped offering ideas. Why would he do anything else? So anyway, the union says, you want to reopen the plant, you have to hire back all the same workers. The same workers who produced the worst performance record of any auto manufacturing plant in North America. You want us to hire those people back. And Toyota said, no problem. And then trained them. Now, you only train things so far. There's a great story in the book, Smarter, Faster, Better, describing a key moment when the leaders had to show people, look, you really need to pull that andon cord and stop the line when there's a problem.
Which was a key part of the Toyota process. That
it's
anyone on the
central.
line, anyone on the line can stop the line, which costs thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars per minute that the line is stopped, right? But anyone in a Toyota plant is empowered to pull that line because something ain't right.
And in fact, you're supposed to.
Right.
They want you to. So these workers had all been trained that we want you to pull the cord, we want you to stop the line. But because they were all former GM employees, they had been trained under GM, never stop the line. That if there's a problem, you mark it with some chalk and we'll fix it later. And they had a whole parking lot full of cars that needed to be fixed because someone had chalked something.
Which is how you end up with a blinker that you flip one way and it turns the opposite blinker on, or you push push the brakes in and your dome light comes on, right?
Yeah, all kinds of brokenness. And so in the Toyota way is, not to get too far afield, is if there's a problem, let's stop. Let's not manufacture a defect we have to fix later, which is wasteful. Let's stop and get it done right and figure out why was there a problem and how do we prevent that problem on future cars, which is a big investment in learning. And it requires a lot of psychological safety to do something like, worker Fred, will pull a cord and stop an entire factory with my pull. Who really wants to do that? Well, nobody at NUMMI wanted to do that. There was one accidental cord pull. And so the president of the plant comes down, sees a worker struggling, this guy named Joe, and comes over to him and says, Joe, pull the cord. And Joe says, no, I got this. And he doesn't. And so finally, the Mr. Toyota, the grandson of the founder, grabs Joe's hand and guides his hand up to the cord and doesn't pull it for him, doesn't rescue him, helps him pull the cord, steps out of the way. Joe finishes doing whatever he's doing, the tail light. And then Joe finishes, he pulls the cord to restart the line. And Joe turns around expecting to get tongue lashed or fired, because that's what would have happened under GM, right? And that's when we've all got the remembered trauma of being yelled at and criticized and whatever. We're still all flinching from that. That's how brains work. Like the amygdala adds, it does not take away. We remember these things to never do. He turns, Mr. Toyota is bowing deeply to him, which if you know anything about Japanese, is a very big deal, and says, Joe, I am so sorry. I have failed you. I have done a poor job of explaining to my subordinates the importance of teaching you to pull the cord. Joe, only you can make every automobile excellent. You are the most important person in this plant. I promise I will do everything in my power not to let you down like this again.
Beautiful.
And Joe is like, what just happened? And so that's I guess it's okay to pull the cord. It's the point. It's I'm so sorry that I didn't do what I should have done to help you pull the cord. This is on me. It's really? Well, 100% responsible for everything that happens and fails to happen, whether you know about it or not. So that would be yes. And so he's owning that. And of course, it says in the story that standing behind Mr. Toyota are all of his subordinates who have just been called out. That I have done a bad job of telling my subordinates the importance of doing this. this story goes up and down the plant like lightning. Everyone hears about, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what just happened. And they all start pulling cords. Within a week, they've got a dozen a day, which is exactly what they needed to do to maintain quality and to learn and to improve their process. So Toyota's not about making cars, they're about improving their processes. Anyway, within
fast forward, the Numi plant becomes what?
The best automobile plant in North America, using the same workers who were the worst in the country.
And that model was repeated throughout GM and was, I believe, largely responsible for really the resurgence of quality in America.
Quality in America. It also helped that Toyota came to America and started opening plants.
Yeah. There's a great This American Life episode fully dedicated to the Numi plant. We can link to in the show notes.
Yeah.
If you want to learn a lot more in detail in a very entertaining This American Life way.
Yeah, and so if you need examples of real world examples of the quality of leadership changing the quality of outcomes, and you could tell that the workers were much happier. They weren't doing drugs, they weren't showing up drunk because they were respected. They weren't yelled at. Their ideas, it's like if you have an idea, we really want to hear it. People would suggest ideas, and management would like jump on it. Every suggestion was responded to either, yeah, we're going to do that, or we need to understand it better, or we have to study this, or whatever. But you would get an answer to your suggestion for every suggestion you made. And they would put up on the wall, every time someone made a suggestion that was implemented, they would have memorialized that on the wall. And now, how could you not want to help make the job better? You're helping yourself and your coworkers to pause and think of a way to improve things. And look, it gets better. There's a guy out of Seattle, Paul, I'm forgetting his last name, and FastCap is his company. And
amazing company.
He basically does a Toyota style thing with his little manufacturing and distribution operation out of a warehouse outside of Seattle. And they just make very inexpensive, they have a mix of expensive and inexpensive things for carpenters and finish carpenters, supplies and equipment. But he fell in love with lean production of the Toyota system, and he's just always saying, hey, what's something, make one thing better today and share with the group what you did. And sometimes they were stupid stuff like I moved my pencil cup 6 inches to the left because I thought it would be better. And then now I moved it back again. But it's like we got to normalize experimenting on how to make our work better. And his worker productivity is 4 times higher than the national average for his industry. 4 times more productive through years of iterating on tiny little improvements and creating a culture where it's safe and expected to come up with improvement suggestions. So, okay, we could spend hours talking about Toyota production systems. One more.
This one I love sharing. A friend of mine, Dave Friend, his name is Friend actually, was president of Pecco Estronics, which is a aerospace manufacturing company. They're worldwide, but they have a plant locally in Portland. And they instituted a What Bugs Me app. It was an app that they developed in-house. It was literally just a little form. I think it had like a photo upload. And every single worker in the entire plant was given the authority to, anytime they found something in the process that bugged them, they would just fill out a little form, take a photo.
Super quick and easy.
Make a suggestion for how it might be remedied, and then just upload it. And it was just on their phone, so it was easy, it was accessible. They didn't, it was the barrier to getting it done was so easy. It wasn't even having to take something and go to a suggestion box.
Right.
Like
lower, pull out your smartphone, take a photo.
Yeah. Lower the pain point as much as possible.
Super
and then they had a committee. So I think it was monthly or every 2 weeks, I don't recall. The committee would review all of the things that had come in from the previous, and they would pick 1 or 2 of those things to work on, based upon how many people it affected, or how great the benefit would be. They had some filters that they selected.
Effort versus reward.
Yeah,
sure.
And then they would of course report back, on all the things that had been proposed, what had been selected. And then they would put together a team that would work on the thing, get it done, and then they had this really awesome board right on the shop floor that showcased every single what bugs me thing that had been fixed with the picture of the proud person who suggested it along
Nice.
with the solution. And
Nice.
it was such an amazing culture building experience. And they were, I believe, if not the most profitable, one of the most profitable facilities owned by Petco Electronics. So, and I
I'll
think
give
that,
you,
that was largely a piece of what made that possible.
yes, I'll give you one last example that I know of. Salem Health in Salem, Oregon. They're a hospital and doctor chain, nonprofit. Every other hospital in Oregon is struggling financially, and they are, let us say gently, are not. Their morale is high, they're fast, they're efficient, and they've been doing lean process improvement for 12 years. And it shows. If I were sick anywhere in that region, that's where I'd want to go, because they're very, very alert to how to make work easier, better, faster, safer, to remove errors and barriers to excellence. So we're talking at length here, Jim and I, about lean and process improvement and all the joys of that, in part because you can't get there if you don't do the stuff we're talking about. People try all the time.
Again, you'll get 80 or 90%. You'll get maybe 80 or 90% at best, right?
Oh, I doubt you'd
Probably
get.
lower than that.
I don't think you'd get 25% of the benefits, because what you're asking people to do when you want people to engage in the work that lean is, which is to raise your hand and say, here's a problem, or to raise your hand and say, I have an idea, or to raise your hand and say, hey, I don't know something I probably ought to know right about now. Maybe we need to improve our process or our system. If you don't have bosses at every level who are creating this experience, I'll put it back on screen, right? In the absence of this sort of psychological safety, you could talk about anything. In the absence of a strong, trusting relationship where you are willing to open up and you're willing to do the work of pulling the andon cord and asking for an improvement and follow the process and don't take shortcuts. When you don't have these precursors, lean process improvement doesn't work. And there's far more failed efforts at that kind of continuous improvement than there are successes. And the failures are always put down to culture. And when I've shown this model to people who've been doing lean for 40 years, they would say, oh yeah, that's exactly what's needed. So if you want a joyful workplace and a productive, profitable workplace, and you want managers who are very good at managing, I would claim that this would be a good model for you to bear in mind as you, hopefully, if you're a manager of managers, you now see that there are things you can do to start thinking about the science rather than the art of leadership, and bring a little bit more rigor. And if Jim and I can help you, of course, we'd love to. But let's not make this podcast into an advertisement excessively. Closing thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think every time we talk about this, even though we talk about it all the time, more revelations come through. And, I was just reflecting on, the HR buzzword of the 2010s was all about engagement, right? And it became, like many buzzwords, it became cliche and it became overused and it became, this thing that everybody was looking for, and then they're like, oh, you can't really get it. And, even the Gallup poll, which measured engagement, had things like, do you have a best friend at work, and things like that on it, which I'm not denying, the value of having a friend at work. However, if we strip away all that cliche, corporate speak about engagement and just get down to what is engagement, engagement is what you just defined. It means I show up at work feeling fulfilled and a sense of purpose. I trust my leaders that they have my best interest in mind, and I also trust them enough that I want to help them succeed.
Yeah.
I feel invested in the company because I am receiving the fulfillment and the trust, the growth and development that I need.
Yeah.
And therefore I reciprocate and I go above and beyond.
Right.
To deliver the best product, the best experience for, ultimately, whoever our customer is, whether internal or external. I'm driven to do that. Like, that's what engagement is to me.
Yeah, it is. I would absolutely agree.
And
People
all of
bring
us can think, anybody who's watching or listening to this can identify with times when they've been at work and they felt engaged or not engaged.
and what a difference those two states are.
Yeah.
So
And
different
then,
from each other.
and then flow that back through, those three mindsets. What didn't exist? For me, I've been lucky. I've had a lot of great bosses in my life, but there was a term of about a year and a half where I didn't. I went to work for a different company, and I did not trust my leader. And it was the first time in my life ever that I didn't wake up excited to go to work. I couldn't even drag myself out of bed.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why, by the
Worst
way,
experience.
absenteeism is a great indicator of bad leadership,
Yeah.
because people don't want to go to work. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up here. This is our inaugural introductory episode of M2 Managing Managers. Currently monthly is the plan. We might accelerate that, but for now it's monthly, the first Friday of every month. And it's me, Thomas Cox, and Jim Prinzing, the principals of the Transformative Leadership Lab. You'll find us at txl-lab.com and here on Spotify and other wonderful places where you find podcasts. Any other closing thoughts, Jim?
Thanks, Thomas.
Outstanding. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to answering your questions and bringing you podcasts that go in detail on specific things you can do to help you manage managers better. Take care.